Good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to this Friday, the 17th of May. Hope your week's gone well. And hey, don't forget that the market's been kind of flat this week. We'll talk about that and more when Dave joins us here in just a few minutes. Before we do that, though, let's not forget that there are so many things that we have no control over. Washington, economy. However, you can take control of your portfolio by knowing how much risk you have versus how much risk you should have in that portfolio. Give us a call, 863-382-0037. Schedule your core retirement design. Hey, with that, we got Dave coming up next.
Point 7, Highlands Light FM, Earth, wind, and fire there. Got fire in the studio. Our air conditioner is broken. It feels like I'm on fire in here. Market was on fire yesterday, too. Time to check in and see what's happening to your money this morning. Phillip Statler from Statler Financial Services in downtown Sebring on the phone to sort the whole mess out. And my Lord, we almost had a major breakthrough yesterday, Phillip. The Dow Jones Industrial Average crossed 40,000 for a while and then promptly ran out of steam.
Well, that's right. It did. It hit that all-time record high of over 40. And man, as soon as it did, I guess people started selling out and taking their profits.
Yeah, it sure looks like. I mean, we touched 40. We got up to about 40,049, I think was the peak while I was looking at my chart. And then as soon as that happened, we started selling and said, oh, boy, profits, profits, profits. And the day ended up just looking like a profit-taking day. Dow was down by 38. S&P was down by 11. NASDAQ was off by 44, so no new records yesterday except for an intraday high with the Dow. And there's possibility the S&P NASDAQ could have done an intraday record as well. But closing, everybody was off by a few pennies, and that sure as heck looks like profit-taking to me, doesn't it, you?
It does, definitely. There wasn't much news. I mean, other than the only thing you and I didn't talk about yesterday because we didn't see it. Post, and that is the import prices skyrocketed. I mean, at least I would say it skyrocketed. They were up 0.9% in April compared to 0.3 that was expected, and compared to 0.6 it was up in the month of March. So that's going the wrong direction, Dave.
Absolutely, and that's even before the Biden import tariffs that he's slapping on a bunch of Chinese goods. So not good news. You and I were noodling it through before we went on the air, and I don't know the formulas. Neither one of us do for sure. But I'm kind of assuming, given the amount of consumables that we import from overseas, a big bump in import prices will show when we get our next PCE inflation report. That's going to come up just about right before the next Fed meeting. So I'm not really looking forward to that in the least.
No, because it seems like, I mean, at least this week, we've seen more indications of inflation than inflation starting to slow down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a split vote, but import prices up more than expected. Wholesale inflation up more than expected. Consumer price index, the only surprise in the bunch to the good side. And that just, I mean, it made a whole bunch of buyers snort crack, I'm convinced.
Yeah.
I got no charitable way to go about it because I don't see any indication whatsoever any major change in the economy. We got one data point that looks good, but 1 point never means a trend, so I just kind of worry about it. Sidelight on the events from yesterday, GameStop and AMC. GameStop lost another 30% of its value. AMC lost another 15% of its value after they unloaded a bunch of treasury stock to make some extra money. The meme stock guys found something more interesting to go on to, and that pretty much left a couple of meme stocks hanging by a thin thread, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. So we saw them all kind of take a little bit of a hit yesterday, and I don't know that they've still made up for that huge gain they made the other day, though.
Yeah, it might be 5 or 10% up from where they started, but it does. One thing that the Reddit gang does prove, that the amateurs still do have influence on the market. You probably aren't going to change General Motors or Apple by very much by a bunch of amateurs going after it, but you get into these modest companies and a couple of micro-cap stocks like something called Crown Electrokinetics or Greenwave Technology Solutions. Those are the next two targets in the meme stock bunch. You get into the small companies, and the amateurs can still make an impact on the market, can't we?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you get a whole bunch of folks heading in one direction against a stock or for a stock, it definitely will. It can cause some definite swings.
Evidently. Other stuff going on talking about interest rates and what the inflation rate could do to them. Yeah, we got above 40,000 and backed off on the Dow, but then we had a couple of rubber chicken speeches going out. Trying to remember which Fed he's in charge of. Barkin, one of the Fed governors, said the consumers are driving inflation, said that higher for longer is going to be the challenge and is going to be the probable strategy. And then basically, Jerome Powell basically said the same thing on Tuesday. We're pretty much getting a clear picture of what the Federal Reserve strategy is going to be, and it doesn't include an interest rate decrease anytime soon.
It doesn't, Dave. And the numbers you and I have seen so far this year, I mean, I think we agree that there's really no room for a decrease in interest rates right now. And some would lean the other direction and actually say maybe, just maybe we need to actually add a quarter. Now, I'm not in that ballpark, but there are some analysts out there and economists out there that think we may have to do that to tap inflation and stop its continued rise.
Now, I've been saying for a couple of months now that in a vacuum, it's a political year, so it's not in a vacuum, but in a vacuum, the data tends to indicate that another quarter point now might be in order now that the interest rate hikes that we had last year have set in, take effect. We know what they've done. Another quarter point just to take that last percentage rate off inflation would seem to be, and I emphasize, in a vacuum would be a good idea. Well, we're not going to do it because it's an election year, and the pressure would be just absolutely inhuman on the Fed to not do that. But yeah, economically, it tends to indicate that's the right thing to do.
Well, that's right. And if it does happen, then you know that the numbers they're seeing are scaring them a little bit.
Exactly. Not a lot going on today. I've got very, very few notable earnings. One of my tip sheets was saying that the next big bump up on the stock market, where they're predicting is going to be relatively quiet for a couple, 3 days. Early next week, we got one last big kahuna to report as far as earnings season is concerned, and it's been one of the darlings on the market as it is. NVIDIA has not yet reported. They've got really high expectations. At least some analysts are saying with the current rise in AI, with Apple adding artificial intelligence ingredients onto their new iPhones, Google and Facebook and all the rest of them are putting in more. NVIDIA may very well even beat the aggressive expectations they've got. Should that happen, that'll probably be the next catalyst that'll bump the Dow over 40 and get NASDAQ up to new nosebleed heights.
Well, it will. If it does come in anywhere close to, or I mean, it has to go over, but if anything better than what everybody expects, then definitely is going to be a fuel to the fire. Now, the opposite could happen, right, Dave? If they miss, if it's not what everybody expected, then we could see a nosedive in those indexes as well.
Yeah, you'd end up basically pulling the chain and flushing the NASDAQ if they miss. I mean, we get so high expectations, and we saw this on a whole bunch of stocks early in earnings season. They've got expectations, they meet them, and then the investors say, well, you didn't beat them by enough, so to heck with you, and we're going to sell. I mean, this is a weird market right now for earnings season. I don't completely get it. Talking about NVIDIA, we got at least a little bit of an indication from a kind of second string chip maker, Applied Materials, one of the few reports we had this morning. How were their quarters doing?
So they came out okay. They beat by about 10 cents a share on revenue at $2.09. And you look at revenue was up a little bit more than expected as well. And so they beat across the board. They're trading up about 1% this morning. So, the chip makers are doing okay. I do want to mention this. I don't know if they reported earnings. It's not on my sheet anywhere, but Cracker Barrel, good old favorite to go to on the highway, Cracker Barrel, their shares are tumbling this morning as they announced they are cutting their dividend by 80% from like $1.25 to 25 cents a quarter. That's a huge deal. It's got Cracker Barrel down 12% this morning.
Lordy, they're one of the old standby stocks a lot of conservative investors buy because they're kind of like an annuity. You can count on the income from them. Nope, not now.
except for when you can't, right?
Yeah.
And we
Other
also had,
indications.
we had another company reported. It's a online networking company called Doximity. Not real familiar with them. They're a smaller company, but they had a good quarter as well. They beat by 5 cents a share at 25 cents. Revenue was a couple million more than expected, and so they're surging this morning, up almost 19%.
Beat the street and have good guidance, and
That's
you can
right.
do okay, right? Yep.
Yep. And one of your favorite companies, Dave, Reddit. Now they didn't report. But I found this interesting. They're getting a nice bump this morning because they made an announcement to partner with OpenAI under some kind of deal that's going to help them out. And so it's actually got Reddit trading up 10% to $62 a share right now.
Well, instead of following the crazy kitty, you can now just ask Reddit what stock to run up and then flush later, right?
That's right. There you go.
Because they're artificially intelligent now on Reddit. Resetting the table. It was kind of a flat day with a little red tinge yesterday for profit taking at the end of the day. What are we looking at 45 minutes before the markets open this morning?
Dave, we got a tinge of green across the board right now. Not much, but it is green. The Dow is up $26, less than 0.1%. The S&P 500 is up 0.1%, and the Nasdaq 100 is up $32, which is almost, not quite, 0.2% to the upside. On the commodity side, we've seen silver go gangbusters again, back over 30 to $30.38. That's up 1.7% from yesterday's close. Gold's up 0.5%, and crude oil it's just trying to get to 80, Dave. It's up almost 0.7% to $79.78 a barrel.
Ooh, that one I could live without. Overseas markets, the Asian rim was kind of interesting. Virtually everything was off of yesterday's results, except for the mainland Chinese markets, and they kind of skyrocketed. China's two mainland markets and Hong Kong all up by the better part of 1%. Everything else was off. Once you get over to the other side of the pond in the European community, they're kind of looking in askance at the moment. Things are trending downward, but not heavily, maybe 0.33% across the European community halfway through their trading day. Trying to guess how to retire? Guessing ain't a good idea. Knowing is where it helps, and getting a plan will help you know you can retire the way you planned on it. How do I find you to know how I'm going to get away with it?
Devin, give us a call at 863-382-0037 to schedule their core retirement analysis. And then join us this weekend for the Statler Financial Radio Show, 6 a.m. and noon on Saturday, 10 a.m. Sunday morning on Highlands News Talk, 7:30 a.m. and 95.3 FM.
And back here on Monday, same time on Light FM, with a look at what's likely to affect your money next week on Wall Street. Phillip, you have a great weekend. I'll see you then, all right?
All right, man. Take care.
Thank you. It's 105.7 Light FM and Statler Financial Services, Phillip Statler.
Hey, folks, again, I want to thank you for joining us. I hope your week has gone well. Have a great weekend. Join us back here again Monday. Take care. Bye now.